Rylan had always lived a simple life, far away from the crowded cities and far from anything that people would call adventure. He worked as an engineer on a small human outpost, a place where days passed slowly and nothing ever changed. Most of his work included fixing broken machines, checking power lines, and keeping the outpost running. People trusted him because he was calm, patient, and always ready to help. But there was one memory in his life that still lived quietly in the back of his mind, even though many years had passed. He remembered a day from his youth, a day when he was still a junior technician sent to assist on an alien ship. That ship had suffered a small crash on the edge of human space, and Rylan had been part of the repair team. It was supposed to be a routine assignment, nothing special, but it became something he never forgot. While working on that ship, he'd found a young alien girl hiding behind a damaged control console. She was small, frightened, and her eyes were full of worry. The crew around her did not pay much attention to her. She looked lonely and lost. Rylan had crouched beside her and asked if she was all right. His voice was gentle, and his expression was warm. The girl had looked at him with surprise, as if no one had ever spoken to her like that before. He gave her a small crystal light to calm her, and she held it in her hands with great care. That soft moment lasted only a few minutes, but it had stayed with him for years. He never told anyone about it. It felt like a private memory, a simple act of kindness that meant something to him, but probably meant nothing to the alien girl. After the ship was repaired, the aliens left. Rylan returned to his life, and time moved on. He assumed she forgot him the moment she went home. Now, many years later, Rylan had grown into a respected engineer. He worked at a lonely outpost near the edge of human territory. Ships rarely passed by, and visitors were almost unknown. Most days were the same: waking up early, fixing something, eating alone, and sleeping early. It was not a bad life, but it felt empty sometimes. One quiet night, everything changed. Rylan had been standing outside, checking the outpost's signal towers. The sky above him was clear, full of stars that looked like tiny lamps hanging in the darkness. Suddenly, a bright streak of light cut across the black sky. At first he thought it was a meteor, but the light grew larger, brighter, and sharper. It was coming directly toward the planet. His communicator buzzed. The outpost's main control called him urgently, saying an unknown vessel had entered orbit. Everyone was confused. No scheduled ships were expected. No warning messages came through. The ship was huge, shining with a soft blue glow, nothing like human design. Then the outpost speakers cracked to life. A single message repeated over and over in a calm, steady voice. "We seek the human named Rylan." Rylan felt his heart jump inside his chest. Why would someone search for him? He was simple, quiet, the kind of man no one paid much attention to. The message repeated again. The outpost officer stared at him with wide eyes. A meeting was held quickly in the command room. Officers argued in worried voices. Who were these visitors? What did they want? And why only Rylan? The message said nothing else. No threat, no explanation. It's only his name. Rylan sat silently, feeling everyone's eyes on him. He felt uncomfortable. He had done nothing that should attract such attention. He wondered if it was a mistake. Maybe there was another Rylan somewhere. But the message was too exact. It felt deliberate. As the officers discussed what to do, a second message arrived. This time, it was direct and personal. We request permission to land. We come in peace. We seek the human engineer Rylan for an important matter. After a long debate, the outpost agreed to let a small shuttle land. Rylan was brought to the landing zone, surrounded by guards. He felt nervous, but also strangely calm. Something deep inside him told him that this moment was connected to a part of his life he had forgotten. The ground shook slightly as the alien shuttle descended. The craft opened with a quiet hiss. A tall figure stepped out, walking slowly, gracefully, as if every step held meaning. She was an alien woman, elegant and strong, her skin faintly glowing like moonlight. Her eyes were bright, but not harsh. They softened the moment they looked at Rylan. For a moment, she simply stood there, silent, looking at him as if confirming he was real. Then she walked closer. Her voice was soft, gentle, and carried a calm strength. "Rylan," she said, "I have traveled far to find you." Rylan stared at her, confused. He had never seen her before. He opened his mouth to speak, but she lifted a hand slightly, as though asking him to let her finish. "Long ago," she said, "you touched my life in a way no one else ever did. You saved me from fear, and you gave me hope." She paused, her eyes filled with something deep and warm. "You may not remember me. I was just a frightened child on a damaged vessel. You approached me with kindness when everyone else ignored me." Rylan felt his breath catch. His mind flew back to the memory he kept hidden for years, the little alien girl holding the crystal light in her hands. He had thought she forgot him instantly. But now, the woman standing before him looked at him with gratitude and emotion, as if that small moment had shaped her life. Understanding washed over him slowly, gently. She was that child. The woman continued speaking. "I was lost then, lonely and afraid. But you looked at me with kindness. That moment changed something in me, something I carried even as I grew older. I am here now because I never forgot the human who treated me with gentle respect." Rylan felt a strange mix of surprise and wonder. He had no idea that his small action could matter so much. He had no idea that a frightened girl he comforted would one day stand before him as a powerful figure. The alien woman stepped closer, her voice steady. "My name is Lysera. I am the heir to the Starborn sovereignty. My people now face a crisis that threatens many lives. And I came to find the one person who once gave me strength when I had none." Everyone around them went silent. The guards lowered their weapons without thinking. The officers stared in disbelief. Rylan himself did not move. He was trying to understand the meaning of her words. Lysera looked directly into his eyes. "I returned for you because I trust you. Because you once touched my life. And because I believe you can help us again." Rylan felt a warmth inside his chest, a feeling he had not experienced in years. He had always thought his life was too ordinary to matter. But here stood someone who had traveled across the stars because of him. He took a slow breath. "I remember you," he said softly. "I didn't know it mattered so much." "It mattered," Lysera replied gently. "More than you ever knew." The air felt still around them, as if the world itself was waiting for what came next. Rylan looked at her, at the sincerity in her eyes, at the quiet strength in her voice. He felt a sense of responsibility rising within him, but also something strange and hopeful. Lysera extended her hand. "Will you come with me, Rylan? Will you let me show you why I returned for you?" Rylan hesitated only for a moment. He thought of his quiet outpost life, of the empty days and silent nights. Then he thought of the memory he cherished, and of the woman who carried it in her heart for years. He slowly reached out and placed his hand in hers. And just like that, the path of his life changed forever. Rylan followed Lysera into her shuttle, feeling as if each step pulled him further away from the life he once knew. The inside of the craft was bright and calm, lit by soft blue lights that gave everything a peaceful glow. Even the air smelled different, fresh like a morning breeze. Rylan had been inside alien ships before, but this one felt special, almost ceremonial. Lysera walked ahead of him with quiet confidence. She moved with grace, and every gesture she made felt controlled and thoughtful. Rylan noticed how the crew members who waited inside the shuttle bowed their heads slightly when she passed. They respected her deeply, maybe even feared disappointing her. But when she turned to look at Rylan, her expression softened in a way she never showed anyone else. "You must be wondering why I need you," she said gently, once they were seated. The shuttle lifted smoothly off the ground. The outpost below slowly shrank until it looked like a tiny model. Rylan nodded. "I don't understand any of this. You're important. You're royalty. I'm just an engineer on a small outpost." Lysera shook her head, her glowing hair catching the light. "You undervalue yourself, Rylan. You always have." Rylan wasn't sure how to respond to that. He looked down at his hands, unsure if he deserved her praise. Lysera continued, her voice calm but firm. "I told you that my people face a crisis. A dangerous cosmic storm is growing in our territory. It moves like a living thing, swallowing whole star systems, and even our strongest scientists cannot fully understand it. Rylan looked up, his interest rising. A cosmic storm? What kind? Not a natural one, Lysera said quietly. We believe it was created long ago by an ancient species. Its energy changes everything it touches. It destroys worlds or twists them into strange forms. Many of our colonies are already lost. Her words fell heavily between them. Rylan could hear the quiet sadness in her voice, a weight she carried inside her every day. So why me? He asked softly. Why search the galaxy for someone like me? Lysera's eyes met his. Because humans see problems differently than my people. You adapt quickly. You survive anything. You find simple solutions when others complicate everything. I remembered how you helped me as a child, and I believed you could help again. Rylan blinked, surprised. All of this because of something I did when you were little. It was not a small thing to me, Lysera said gently. I was a lonely child. You were the first person to show me kindness without expecting anything. That moment stayed in my memory like a light in dark places. When I grew older and faced challenges, I remembered you. And when my people needed someone who thinks differently, your face came to my mind again. Rylan leaned back in his seat, feeling the weight of her words. He never knew a single gentle action could matter so much. He felt humbled, almost embarrassed, but also strangely proud. The shuttle docked with the main ship, and the doors opened to reveal a grand corridor with curved walls, glowing patterns, and a quiet hum that echoed softly. Rylan stepped inside and felt as if he had entered a floating palace. The floors were smooth like glass, yet warm under his feet. Delicate lights floated along the ceiling, moving like tiny stars. Lysera walked beside him. Welcome to the Starborn Sovereignty's flagship, the Luminara. Crew members watched Rylan with mixed expressions. Some looked curious, others doubtful. A few seemed uncomfortable, as if they questioned why their princess had brought a human aboard. Their most important vessel, Lysera noticed their looks but ignored them. She led Rylan to a viewing chamber, a wide-open space with a transparent wall that showed the endless stars outside. The ship slowly rotated as they traveled. Giving Rylan a breathtaking view of the galaxy, he stood there silently, trying to absorb everything. Lysera, standing beside him, spoke softly. This ship has been my home for many years. I grew up here after my family moved following the incident on the research vessel, the one I worked on. Rylan asked. Yes, she said with a small smile. That ship was old and not very safe for children. After the accident, my family moved me here for protection. I was young, quiet, and often alone. But I remembered the moment when you spoke to me. You told me everything would be okay, and I chose to believe it. Rylan felt a gentle ache in his chest. He hadn't known his words carried so much meaning. At the time, it felt like the natural thing to do comfort a frightened child. But for her, it had become something she carried into her future. Lysera turned toward him fully. When I became heir, my responsibilities grew. I had to solve problems, help lead my people, and make difficult choices. But the crisis we face now is bigger than anything we have ever handled. I realized we needed a different kind of mind, a different kind of heart. And you came for me, Rylan said quietly. Yes, she replied. I followed a memory that never faded. Soft pause settled between them. The stars outside shimmered like tiny hopes scattered across the dark. A crew officer entered the room, bowing respectfully to Lysera. Your Highness, the Council has been informed of the humans' arrival. They request a meeting. Lysera nodded. Prepare the chamber. The officer bowed again and left quickly. Rylan looked uneasy. A council. Why do they want to see me? They want to understand why I brought you, Lysera said. They worry about trusting outsiders, but you will be fine. Just speak honestly. Rylan wasn't convinced. I'm not great with councils. I just fix things. Lysera smiled softly. Which is exactly why I trust you. The council chamber was spacious, with a circular platform in the center and tall seats arranged around it. The council members were older starborn, with calm but serious expressions. Their robes flowed like water, and their eyes held deep intelligence. When Ryland stepped into the center, some murmurs rose. He could feel their eyes on him, judging him. He tried to stay steady. One council elder spoke first. "Princess Lysera brings you here claiming you can help us. Yet you are human a species, young and inexperienced in the greater galaxy. Why should we trust you?" Ryland opened his mouth, unsure what to say. Lysera stepped forward, her voice firm. "This human once saved me when I was young. His kindness shaped my path, and his mind works unlike ours. We need ideas, not pride, if we are to survive." Another elder looked at Ryland. "Human, do you believe you can help us solve the crisis we face?" Ryland took a slow breath. "I don't know if I can solve everything, but I can try. I've spent my whole life fixing things that people say are impossible. Machines, systems, structures, they all follow patterns. Even storms follow rules, even if we don't see them at first. If you give me the chance, I'll do everything I can." The council watched him carefully. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then an elder nodded. "We see sincerity in your words. The princess has placed her trust in you. Very well. You may work with our scientists." Ryland felt a wave of relief wash over him. Lysera gave him a calm, encouraging smile. After the council meeting, Lysera took Ryland to a research chamber where dozens of scientists gathered around floating screens showing the swirling cosmic storm. The images were frightening giant spirals of energy tearing through star systems. Leaving destruction behind, Ryland moved closer, studying the patterns. Something caught his eye. "This storm? It repeats a formation every few rotations," he murmured. A scientist looked at him sharply. "You notice that?" Ryland nodded. "Yes, it looks random, but it's not. There's a pattern hidden inside, like it was designed with a purpose." Lysera watched him with admiration. "Ryland, this is why I brought you." The scientists gathered around him, asking questions and showing him data. Ryland felt something inside him shift. He was no longer the quiet engineer on a lonely outpost. He was someone who could help save entire worlds. And every time he looked up, Lysera's eyes were already on him, filled with trust, warmth, and the memory of a small act of kindness that had grown into something far greater than he ever imagined. Ryland woke early the next day, even before the ship's soft morning lights filled the hallway outside his room. The starborn ship followed a quiet rhythm, and the lights slowly brightened like a sunrise. He stepped out of his room and found the corridors peaceful, with only a few crew members walking by. Many offered him small nods. Some looked curious, while others still seemed doubtful. Ryland understood. A human suddenly appearing on their most important vessel was not something they expected. He made his way to Ward, the research chamber where he and the scientists had worked the previous evening. He wanted to look at the storm's data again. Something about it kept bothering him. The door opened with a gentle sound, and he entered the large room. Holographic screens showed swirling clouds of dark energy, twisting like giant shadows floating through space. Several starborn scientists were already working, adjusting settings, comparing data, and running calculations. When they saw Ryland, they paused for a moment, almost surprised that he had come so early. One scientist approached him. Her name was Sorella, a calm woman with silver markings under her eyes. "Human Ryland," she said politely. "You are awake early." "Just Ryland," he corrected gently. "And yes, I couldn't stop thinking about the storm." Sorella gave a small smile. "That is good. We need minds that do not rest. Please, join us." Ryland stepped closer to the main display. It showed a massive spiral of energy stretching across several star systems. He studied it carefully. The storm pulsed with slow, heavy waves, like a living thing breathing. He pointed at a section. "This part here, it repeats every few cycles. That means the storm doesn't change by accident. Someone made it this way." Sorella nodded. "We suspected the same. Our records mention an ancient species, the Void Architects. They created weapons unlike anything known." Ryland ran a hand through his hair. Weapons that still function thousands of years later? That's scary. Before Sorella could reply, the door opened and Lysera entered the chamber. Her presence filled the room instantly. The scientist straightened respectfully, but her eyes went directly to Rylan. "You're awake early?" she said softly. Walking to him. "I couldn't sleep much," Rylan replied. "Too many thoughts." Lysera smiled gently. "That means you care." Rylan felt warmth rise in his chest, but he returned his attention to the storm images. "I think the storm follows a path. It's not random. It's trying to reach something." Lysera stepped beside him, studying the pattern. "Reach something? Like what?" "I'm not sure yet," Rylan said, his eyes narrowing as he studied the lines of energy. "But the movement, it's like it grew from a starting point and is expanding outward." Sorella approached with a data tablet. "If that is true, then the storm has a center we have not yet discovered." Rylan nodded. "Yes, and if we find that center, maybe we can understand the whole thing." Lysera looked at the scientists. "Prepare a scouting plan. We will go to the predicted center. We need answers." Scientists exchanged uncertain glances. One of them stepped forward. "Princess, the storm is dangerous. Sending a ship inside could risk lives." Lysera's voice was calm but firm. "We will not send a ship. We will send a small scout craft with a protective field, and I will go with it." The room went silent. Several scientists looked alarmed. Even Sorella seemed shocked. Rylan felt his chest tighten. "You're going into the storm yourself?" he asked. "Yes," Lysera said simply. "I cannot ask others to risk what I will not." Rylan shook his head. "Then I'm going with you." Lysera blinked, surprised, then her expression softened. "Rylan, the storm is unpredictable. It might not be safe." Rylan smiled faintly. "I thought that's why you brought me to help." Lysera stared at him for a moment. Something warm and deep grew in her eyes. "Then we will face it together." Preparations began immediately. A special scout ship was chosen, small but strong, with a flexible energy shield. Engineers worked non-stop to strengthen its defenses. Rylan helped them, offering simple solutions that improved the ship more than anyone expected. He replaced complex shield parts with simpler ones that would not overload under pressure. The starborn engineers were impressed by the time the scout craft was ready. Rylan was exhausted but satisfied. Lysera stood at the entrance of the ship wearing a suit made of soft, glowing material. "Are you ready?" she asked. Rylan nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." They boarded the craft, and the hatch sealed behind them. The pilot was a quiet starborn named Velen, skilled in navigating dangerous areas. The small craft detached from the main ship and moved toward the storm. Outside the window, the swirling darkness grew larger and larger. It pulsed with deep waves of energy, as if it had a heartbeat. Rylan felt his palms sweat. Velen activated the protective shield. A faint glow surrounded the craft. "We will enter in 5 breaths," he announced calmly. Rylan and Lysera exchanged a glance. Lysera's expression was steady, but her eyes held a quiet tension. The storm surrounded them like a giant moving ocean. The ship shook slightly, and strange flashes of energy passed by the windows. Rylan felt a strange hum under his feet, like something ancient calling out. "This place feels alive," he whispered. Lysera nodded slowly. The Void Architects created strange things. They shaped energy like sculptors. As they went deeper, the ship began to tremble harder. Velen struggled with the controls. "We are reaching the core waves," he said through clenched teeth. Rylan leaned forward. "Adjust the lower stabilizer. The shield is pushing too hard." Velen followed his instructions, and the ship steadied. Lysera watched Rylan with admiration. "You saved us again." "I just see things differently," Rylan said quietly. Suddenly the storm thinned. The craft passed through a final curtain of swirling energy and entered a silent space. Everything was calm. The storm formed a perfect circle around them, as if they were in the eye of the phenomena. Rylan stared out the window. "This is the center." Lysera stood beside him. In the middle of the empty space floated a massive object, dark, metallic, ancient. It pulsed with the same rhythm as the storm. "It's a device," Rylan said in awe. "It's creating the storm." Velen scanned the structure. The energy signature matches the ancient void technology. Rylan stepped closer to the console. "This device? It's failing. That's why the storm is spreading. It wasn't meant to run this long." Lasar's voice trembled slightly. "Can it be stopped?" Rylan took a deep breath. "I think so. But we need to get closer," Blinn objected immediately. "That is too dangerous. The device gives off unstable bursts." Rylan turned to Lysera. "We need to try. If we don't shut it down, your people will lose more worlds." Lysera looked terrified for the first time, not for herself, but for the responsibility she carried. Then she straightened her shoulders. "Take us closer." The ship moved slowly, inching toward the ancient construct. Energy sparks jumped across the surface like tiny lightning storms. The craft shook under the pressure, and alarms beeped. Rylan gripped the panel. "There. That opening it looks like an access point. If we can send a signal inside, we might shut it down." Lysera placed her hand over his. Their eyes met. "You guide me," she said softly. Together, they worked. Rylan adjusted the ship's transmitter. Lysera used her knowledge of old starborn languages, some of which were connected to void patterns. Their hands moved quickly, almost synchronized. Finally, Rylan pressed a final sequence. The device pulsed once twice, then all at once, its light dimmed. The storm outside began to slow. The violent energy softened and became calm spirals. Velen gasped. "The storm is collapsing." Rylan leaned back, exhausted. Lysera turned toward him with deep emotion shining in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved us." Rylan shook his head. "We did it." The craft returned through the fading storm, the path now clear. When they emerged, the flagship waited for them, its lights glowing bright and hopeful as they approached the docking bay. Lysera looked at Rylan gently. "You once touched my life when I was lost," she said quietly. "But today, you changed the fate of my people." Rylan felt warmth in his chest, deeper than anything he had felt in years, and he knew part 4 of his journey, whatever it would bring, would be life-changing for both of them. The return to the flagship was quieter than anyone expected. Velen guided the small scout craft into the docking bay. And as soon as the hatch opened, dozens of starborn crew members stood waiting. Their expressions were full of wonder, relief, and something deeper gratitude. They had watched the storm collapse on their monitors. They knew exactly who had made it possible. Rylan stepped out of the ship behind Lysera. The soft lights of the docking bay glowed on everyone's faces. Some bowed deeply to Lysera, but many looked past her and stared at Rylan with eyes that held new respect. It was the first time he had ever seen aliens look at a human that way. Lysera turned slightly toward him. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "This moment is because of you." Rylan shook his head lightly. "Because of us. We did it together." She smiled, a slow, warm smile that made her bright features soften even more. They walked side by side through the long corridor toward the central hall, where the council was already gathering. As they moved, more crew members joined behind them. It felt like a quiet procession, almost ceremonial, though no one had planned it. The steps of the group echoed softly, creating a calm rhythm. Rylan's mind was full of conflicting emotions: relief that they survived, pride that he helped, confusion about how so much had changed in such a short time, and something else, a deep, gentle feeling whenever he looked at Lysera. She walked confidently, but occasionally her hand drifted slightly toward him, as if making sure he still walked beside her. She had faced fears no one else had seen, and through all of it, she had chosen him to stand with her. When they reached the council hall, the doors opened automatically. The chamber glowed with blue and silver light. Council elders stood in a circle, their robes flowing softly, their expressions serious yet hopeful. The oldest council elder stepped forward. "Princess Lysera." "Human Rylan, you have returned safely." Lysera bowed her head respectfully. "Yes, elder. And the storm is no longer growing. The ancient device has been shut down." Gasps and murmurs spread across the chamber. The elder raised a hand for silence. His voice trembled slightly with emotion. "You have done what our scientists could not. For generations, the storm haunted our borders, destroying our colonies and leaving many families in grief. But today, it ends." He turned his eyes fully toward Rylan. "We owe you our deepest gratitude, human Rylan. You have not only aided our princess, but have saved countless lives." Rylan felt overwhelmed. He never imagined anyone would speak to him like this. Another elder stepped forward. "The Starborn sovereignty does not forget such deeds. You shall be honored as a friend to our people. And you shall be given a choice, a future one, free of fear or limitation." The council elder gestured toward Lysera. "Our princess placed her trust in you, and you have proven worthy of that trust." Lysera looked at Rylan with soft pride in her eyes. She stepped closer and spoke clearly, her voice steady yet warm. "I did not bring Rylan only because he once helped me. I brought him because he carries a strength many never see in themselves: kindness, patience, and a simple way of thinking that revealed truths we could not find alone." She paused, her gaze deepening. "He has become more than a memory from my childhood. He has become a part of our path forward." Rylan felt something shift inside him, an emotion too large to hide. The council elder stepped forward again. "Rylan, you may remain with us as an honored advisor. You may live among us, study with our scholars, explore our worlds, and help build a safer future." Rylan looked down for a moment, trying to process everything. His life at the outpost had been plain and lonely. But here, he felt connected, valued, needed. And Lysera was part of that feeling, perhaps the strongest part. He lifted his head. "If the choice is mine, then I want to stay. I want to help however I can." Lysera's eyes brightened, and relief filled her expression like light breaking through a cloud. The council nodded in approval. "Then let this be a new beginning." After the meeting ended, Lysera led Rylan to a quiet balcony that overlooked the stars. The room was peaceful, filled with soft crystal lights. A gentle breeze from the ship's air system made the curtains sway like calm waves. Rylan leaned on the railing. "I didn't expect any of this," he said quietly. Lysera stood beside him, her voice soft. "I was afraid you might choose to return home." "I thought about it," Rylan admitted. "But I don't feel like that is my home anymore." Lysera turned slightly toward him. "Then what feels like home now?" Rylan took a deep breath. He looked at the stars, then at her. "Here, with your people. With." Lysera's glowing eyes softened. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she stepped closer, her voice gentle and sincere. "You changed the course of my life once when I was a child. Today, you changed it again. When someone becomes a guiding light twice in a lifetime, that person can never be forgotten." Rylan felt his chest tighten with emotion. "I didn't do anything extraordinary," yes, Lysera said firmly. "You did. You saw me when others did not. You helped us when you could have refused. You entered a storm for people you barely knew. That is rare." She paused, her voice dropping to a soft whisper. "Rylan, I returned for you because you shaped my life. But now, I want you to shape my future too." Rylan's breath caught slightly. "Lysera." She stepped even closer, her face only a small distance from his. "I know humans and Starborn live differently. We think differently. But I also know bonds form between those who choose to walk the same path. I want you on my path, Rylan." Rylan felt warmth spread through him, steady and genuine. "I want that too." They stood together for a long time, watching the stars. For the first time in years, Rylan felt truly alive, not because he had saved a galaxy, but because he had found a place where he mattered, and a person who saw him with clarity and affection. Days turned into weeks. Rylan worked with the Starborn scientists to build new defenses to prevent another storm from ever forming. He learned their technologies, shared human ideas, and earned their respect. The ship's crew began treating him like one of their own. Some even asked for his advice. Lysera visited him often. Sometimes they talked about science, sometimes about the past, and sometimes about the future they hoped to build. Their bond grew naturally, gently, without rush or pressure. just steady trust. One evening, Lysera brought him to the same balcony again. The stars glowed softly, and the ship hummed peacefully. "Rylan," she said quietly, "there is something I want to tell you." He turned toward her. "What is it?" She smiled, soft, sincere, warm. "Long ago, you touched my life and gave me strength. When I returned for you, I thought it was only because of that memory. But now I know. It was also because you are the person my heart recognized even before I understood it." Rylan felt emotion rise in his chest. He reached out gently and took her hand, not in fear, but in certainty. "I don't know what the future will look like," he said softly, "but I want to face it with you." Lysera's eyes warmed like starlight. "Then we will face it together," as the stars shone around them. The two stood side by side, no longer a frightened alien child and a kind young technician, but two lives forever changed by one small moment of compassion that grew into something far stronger. Their story, once separated by time and distance, now moved forward as one.